Today we're at the tomb of William Henry Harrison in Congress Green Cemetery. Here is a layout of the area. You see Congress Green Cemetery right here, and there's the stairs leading to it, which is right over here. We will head up there. First, I want to check out William Henry Harrison tomb, and then we'll make our way over there. And it looks like there's actually a trail, a nature trail that goes to the tomb. We will take that way to get to the tomb. Learn a little more about where we're at here in North Bend, Ohio. Looks like William Henry Harrison actually came to Ohio in 1791. You can see here life in North Bend. There's a picture of Benjamin Harrison right there. After the War of 1812, William Henry Harrison resigned his post and settled in with his family here in North Bend, Ohio. North Bend is actually the home of two presidents, one being Benjamin Harrison and the other William Henry Harrison. Benjamin Harrison was William Henry Harrison's grandson. He was known as the frontier politician. His political career began soon after he left the military. You can look over here, this would be his resume. He is very decorated. A lot of accomplishments. One of his major accomplishments was at the Battle of Tippecanoe. Here we see this sign, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. So in 1840, he was up against Democrat Martin Van Buren. And it says down here, Eastern newspapers characterize him as a simple man, better suited to drinking hard cider in his log cabin rather than serving as president. Van Buren, in contrast, was seen as aristocratic and aloof. So you had one that was the people's man, the war hero, up against an aristocratic, aloof incumbent, Van Buren. And eventually he won the election over Van Buren and became our 9th president of the United States. And on March 4th, 1841, a cold, dreary, rainy day, Harrison took the oath of office and delivered the longest inaugural speech ever. Unfortunately, while giving that long speech, he fell ill, and just 1 month later, William Henry Harrison had died. John Tyler took over as the nation's 10th president. His wife famously said, "I wish my friend's husbands had left him where he is," she lamented after the election, happy and contented in retirement. So it sounds like Ann Sims Harrison did not want her husband involved in politics or running for the presidency. Very sad. Alright, time to head down to the nature trail and see the tomb up close. the stairs toward the William Henry Harrison Memorial. Here we are at the entrance to the monument. Flag is still at half staff. I'm assuming it was from September 11th. William Henry Harrison, 1773 to 1841. Ohio's first president and gallant soldier. Ninth president of the United States, hero of Tippecanoe. He was a major general in the War of 1812. Served on the U.S. Senate from Ohio. He was also the governor of the Territory of Indiana. He's a very accomplished man, if I'd say so myself. As we approach the memorial, we get a nice view on top of this hill here in North Bend, Ohio. We're on the corner of Cliff and Brower Road down here. And there is the tomb. Looks like the door is open. There it is. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that there is a president buried in Cincinnati, Ohio. Or interred, as I should say. Not many people know this is here. Partly because how little the length of time he was in office was. He's not one of the more famous presidents by a long shot. But nonetheless, he's a president. He's buried here, right here in North Bend, Ohio. We're now entering the crypt of the tomb. You can see Harrison's name, the family name up here. Looks like there's also a visitor's register to sign. It was a very small door. I almost was afraid I was going to hit my head. So Harrison was the first president to die in office. Only 32 days served. Here we get a closer look inside the tomb here. But it looks like he's not alone in here. Mary A.S., wife of Carter B. Harrison, is in here. John Scott Harrison is interred in here, which we'll learn a little bit more about him and what went on at the cemetery when we go to Congress Green. But it is a crazy story, to say the least. And in here, we have William Henry Harrison and his wife, Ann Sims Harrison. There's also the Eaton family buried in here as well. There's also a little bench here in honor of our 9th president, William Henry Harrison. Let's sit down here, and if you look off in the distance right here, you can see the Ohio River. And that's how North Bend got its name. There is an upward bend in the Ohio River at this point, hence the name North Bend. Walking around the back of the tomb, there's another inscription on the back here. I'm trying to make out what it says, but the sun is right in my eyes. Here we are getting a closer look at the inscriptions on the back of the tomb. It lists all of his accomplishments. Now we're going to head to Congress Green Cemetery. First, let's do a little reading. All right, Congress Green Cemetery, probably the most well-known figure buried here is John Cleve Sims. He had a vision of this area becoming a thriving city known as Sims. However, it never came to fruition. Instead, all we have is a narrow road, the Congress Green Cemetery, which is his final resting place, right up there on that hill. Now, a tale of something macabre that happened here happened to this man right here, John Scott Harrison. Which, an interesting note about him is he's the only person to be both son to a president and father to another one. His father being William Henry Harrison, and his son, Benjamin Harrison. We have what they call the Harrison Horror. When funeral ceremonies were held for John Scott Harrison at Congress Green in 1878, mourners were dismayed to find that a nearby grave had been dug up and had its contents stolen. John Harrison Jr., John Scott Harrison's son, was in charge of finding the missing corpse. The trail ended up leading them to the Ohio Medical College in Cincinnati. Once inside and they were searching, they find a naked body hidden in a narrow shaft. Thinking he was going to find a missing corpse, John Jr. was horrified to find his own father, John Scott Harrison. He had been buried just 24 hours earlier. Grave robbing was a lucrative business at the time. His body was brought back. John Scott Harrison would have been buried in Congress Green Cemetery, and was for a short period of time, until grave robbers dug up his body. It was later found and reinterred in the Harrison tomb. What a crazy story. making our way to the center of the cemetery here, where some of the notable figures that we've been reading about and learning about are buried. One of the first graves that I've stumbled upon is that of Lucretia K. It says right here, it's kind of hard to read, wife of John Scott Harrison. It's kind of sad she wasn't buried next to her husband, John Scott, who is now interred in the Harrison tomb because his body was snatched from this very cemetery. So he more than likely would have been laid to rest right next to her, where they would remain for eternity. But the body snatchers had other ideas. And here we have the final resting place of John Cleve Sims, who at the foot of these hills made the first settlement between the Miami River. Looks like he died in 1814 on February 26th. It's often thought as the founder of Cincinnati, John Cleve Sims, and he rests right here in a small graveyard on top of a hill in North Bend, Ohio. Not to be outdone, the wife of John Cleve Sims, Betsy Bassett Short, has this monument right here dedicated to her. So she is next to her husband. One thing I forgot to mention is that William Henry Harrison's wife, Anna Sims, is actually the daughter of John Cleve Sims. And John Cleve Sims was not pleased with the idea of his daughter marrying William Henry Harrison. But against her father's wishes, they got married anyway. And these graves right here are the graves of their children. This one right here, Dr. Benjamin Harrison, who was the son of William Henry Harrison. Here we have William Henry Harrison Jr., who was the son of William Henry and Anna Harrison. And this last marker right here is Carter Bassett Harrison, another son of William Henry Harrison and Anna. This one's hard to make out. I believe that says Bassett. I've always really liked how these old, tall, Gothic style headstones looked. They don't hold up well over time. As you can see, some of them have been cracked, toppled over. There's just a certain aesthetic about these that I find really cool. And if I walk further back, Dr. Benjamin Harrison's children are buried right here as well. His name was William Henry. Very confusing. There's a lot of similar names here. They weren't very creative with the naming. James Irwin, son of John Scott and Elizabeth Harrison. Congress Green Cemetery is also home to the running buffalo clover, which I believe is right here. One of the few places in Ohio that this species still exists. Just walking around back here, I noticed this house up here has a caboose out front. Here's a closer look at the caboose. Looks like I finally stumbled upon a Revolutionary War veteran. There's Civil War veterans buried here, as well as Revolutionary War veterans. Here we have William Rittenhouse, captain of the Penn Militia, Revolutionary War. He passed away in 1831. There are a lot more graves here than I anticipated. They're scattered about this area. Some are really old and very hard to read, so I'm not going to be able to look at every single grave, obviously. Some are so deteriorated it's hard to even read the inscriptions. But nonetheless, a very cool place with some rather notable figures in Ohio history, buried right up here on this hill.